elders, we acknowledge the traditional custodians who've walked and cared for our land for thousands of years, including on the south coast, Sister Bernadetta. We acknowledge the continued deep spiritual attachment and relationship of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to this country. And we commit ourselves to the ongoing journey of reconciliation. Sister Bernadetta, are you able to open our proceedings now that I've...
The prayer. Spirit of God, we invoke your blessing on this country and on us as we gather for this occasion. We acknowledge the Indigenous elders of the Aboriginal people, those who once lived here and into whose sacred space our forebears came, changing forever an older way of life. Bless us and bless their descendants. Help us to join hearts together. Help us to heal one another and the land, your land, so ravaged by the work of our hands with drought and recent fire, so that our lives may flow in harmony and we may live with love and deep respect. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Sister. And I see you've been joined by some more people from the South Coast. That's wonderful. And Brendan Gisman. And welcome to Chilaka Fernando from North Canberra. And Kevin Liston, I suspect you're from Adelaide.
Yes, I am.
Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So I guess the background to our discussions is just to reflect briefly on the fires and the droughts and the smoke that we've been through, but then to recognise that we've had a couple of discussions in Laudato Si week on Laudato Si, and this is in Laudato Si week. The Vatican launched their special anniversary year, and so at the meeting on Friday in the launch in Oceania, welcome Terry from Kerma, that the Vatican person emphasised that what the Universal Church is trying to do is to use this special year that started on the 24th of May to ramp up the response to Laudato Si, so that over the next 7 years they can continue to grow it exponentially and achieve a critical mass to achieve its objectives and spread the actions. So that's why we're here, is to sort of talk about what we're doing in our part of the world. And Jackie Raymond, who couldn't be with us tonight, emphasised that at our conferences that it's important that we each have our own local context and our authentic response to that, and that by us presenting some case studies tonight on what's happening in different places, we're able to discern what might be useful in our own local places, based on the integral ecology and the connectiveness of Laudato Si. And so the Laudato Si is a global document, but we're more or less thinking globally, but then we're discerning a way forward locally for responses. And welcome to Eves from the South Coast too. It's wonderful that there's a number of people joining us from those fire devastated areas. And so one of the things that we're interested in South Belconnen is getting word out to those areas that were devastated by drought and fire, to offer hope that by working together in the Laudato Si area, we can respond in the way that we should. So another example Paul might want to talk about, because Paul's got a very close connection in Brazil, and there has been an example of a regional response by the Universal Church in the form of the Synod on the Amazon, which followed on from Laudato Si last year. Did you want to briefly mention your understanding of that regional consideration, Paul?
Yeah, Laudato Si, as we know, was published about 4 or 5 years ago. And in October last year, the Pope convened a synod of bishops from the 9 Amazon countries to look at the role of the church in that particular region. And the result was that over 2 weeks, there were a couple of hundred bishops in Rome meeting, and there were also a lot of other religious there, and also a lot of laity. And the idea was to evaluate and look for how to develop the role of the church in the Amazon. The hundreds of bishops produced a report, and in February of this year, the Pope responded, and he responded in a fascinating document, which essentially upheld the report of the synod. Now, the Amazon is a long way away. Believe me, it is truly a remarkable place. But wherever you hear the word Amazon, you can substitute the Murray-Darling River Basin, because the reports of both the October Synod and also what the Pope wrote and released in February are of high relevance to the way we manage both our environment and also to the place of Indigenous Australians. And particularly now, with Black Lives Matter, the Pope's February response this year, which built on Laudato Si, has become even of greater relevance to our country.
Yes. So thanks for that, Paul. Those issues about Indigenous enculturation and ecological destruction are relevant to us here in Australia. And in the Archdiocese, the Laudato Si really got a boost in 2018 when Jackie held an ecumenical national conference at Geelong. In 2017, she held a weekend out there for the locals, and there were a lot of local farmers in that present. And then in 2018, she invited all these people from all over Australia and invited traditional Aboriginal people from the north, famous climate change economist Ross Garnaut from Melbourne. And there were eminent scientists there from Canberra, water scientists, land management scientists. And all these people got together with Bishop Pat Power and the Redemptorist theologian, and it was a magnificent weekend. And I was fortunate to have been there. And a lot of the eminent people present really saw Laudato Si as a major contribution. And so when we got back to Canberra, we realised there were a number of us living nearby in Canberra, and so we wanted to carry on that work. And Robbie may be able to mention what happened when we got together, Robbie, and how we started off.
Thanks, Roger. Yes, so I'm from the Uniting Church and have met Roger and others from the Catholic Church and also the Anglican Church here in Canberra in an ecumenical discussion arising out of the Laudato Si discussions at Geelong. And what we've done is that we've taken the Australian context of what do we mean by an integral ecology, and explored that in the context of listening to the statement from the heart, the Uluru statement that was generously given by Indigenous leaders in 2017, looking around the themes of voice and truth and treaty as questions that Australia needs to recognise and work with in order to achieve a sense of reconciliation and redemption. And it's I've got the book here. It's called A Voice in the Wilderness, Listening to the Statement from the Heart. And the artwork on the cover by Glenn Loffrey features a strange, there's no centre. And his reason for doing that was just what a terrible thing it is that we have such a lack of recognition and engagement with the great Indigenous heritage, cultural and spiritual heritage in Australia, and what an important thing it is to build that conversation. So there are 8 chapters in listening to the statement from the heart, and our group began meeting in person, and then of course we've shifted to online, and it's been a really valuable opportunity for us, especially to speak with Indigenous knowledge leaders. We met Glenn, the artist, and he's an Anglican minister in Melbourne, and we met Celia Kemp, who's the author, based at a retreat in just outside Alice Springs, bring the theme of just conversation with Indigenous people. But then especially we met with Wally Bell, who's a Ngunnawal knowledge holder here in Canberra, and it was just a really special thing to hear Wally comment about the sense of reverence and connection to land that is part of the identity of Indigenous people. And so we're hoping to be able to continue this discussion. And I think, as others have mentioned, the context of the protests around racism and the murder of George Floyd has given some sharpness to the value of this. But I think in the context of Laudato Si, one of the great things there about this integral ecology concept is that care for the earth and care for humanity need to be combined. And
I can see Mari is there. She was part of our listening group, and it was good the way we crowdfunded it, much as we did those seminars last month. Everyone chipped in. It was wonderful. And so with the listening group, we then began to form a, actually we didn't do anything. It was the parish priest, our Father Simon, sort of pointed us in the direction of a number of individuals in our parish that were interested in this area. So John Giacon, our footprint manager, was very interested in the parish doing something on its footprint. And I was on the parish finance council, and Father Simon said to me, look, you should get alongside this guy with all this Laudato Si stuff. And also mentioned Mari, who's with us tonight, as interested in prayer support in that direction. And so these were visionaries within our parish that he was aware of. And we sort of got together, and about that time, they put on a parish expo where all the groups in the parish had a stall. So we said, well, we're a group. We'll go along and, have a stall. And that's where we came across Sarah. Can people see that little flyer we prepared? That was an example of, oh, good, thank you. So it sort of outlines what our group does, and we produced that for the expo. And then we sort of put copies in the parish foyer. And we came across wonderful people like Brendan, who's here tonight, who's interested, and other parishioners that expressed interest. And we don't really meet, but we did have a sort of odd coffee meeting or two. And one of the key things that we looked at was how are we going to market this? You know, how are we going to communicate? Because it was the communications that got us sort of started. And we had a communication strategy that we applied, which I can share with you very briefly. And all these tools we can make available to people if they're interested, if it's appropriate to people's, you know, where they're at. Murray, did you want to talk briefly about the work that, you know, where you've been working in with the prayer support and so on with the circle? We call it the Laudato Si circle.
Yes, it's been very much an individual thing. I haven't been able to contact any of our groups to specifically look for prayer, but I would like to share just a couple of thoughts. One was that for me, the simplest prayer of all is that there's something I learned many years ago, was when you see something beautiful, a sunset or a flower or something else that gives you a real sense of awe. I was told at the time that it, for most people, it's just oh, how beautiful. But for those who have a deeper spirituality, we're asked to take it that one step further in terms of thank you, God. Literally acknowledge that creation has all come from God by that very simple prayer. We can do it anywhere, anytime, 100 times a day, and show our gratitude. And so we build up our own gratitude for the world around us. And it's something simple that we can share with others who might be similarly interested in just, as I say, simple prayer to connect us with nature and with the Creator. If I can go on to talk about the communications, Roger, which you mentioned, most of you will have Googled, I'm sure, and found environmental groups all around the country. I have one in particular in relation to South Australia. I noticed you mentioned Kevin was from South Australia. It's called a Fossil-Free South Australia. And they're actually having a workshop this Saturday to help people write letters to send to the government and to their local members. And I just thought, well, for those who don't have the skill, if we go on to other people's websites, we can pick up ideas and suggestions. And if we join 2 or 3 groups, then all the better. And that's, as I say, a very, very simple approach, but that's the way I like to go. Thank you, Roger.
Yes, and Mareni is also here from Adelaide, Kevin. So we did have this communication strategy, and we identified the audience groups and also the type of message that might be worth mentioning to them, and how we might go about it, and when and who. And so, for example, you'll see that the prayer of the faithful and the parish bulletin, education down the bottom was important. You know, getting to the leaders of the parish was very important, and influencing the finance council members with John's Footprint Project, and the pastoral council members, you know, giving them a briefing. And we handed out those flyers at Mass, and we had posters that we can share with you. And we even had a PowerPoint overhead screen on the, remember Sarah, you developed that overhead screen for at Mass, and talk to the Korean community. And Sarah got involved because she's interested in the education sector, which was one of our audience groups, and you might like to talk about that briefly, Sarah.
So as you know, I'm studying secondary teaching, and I'm doing business and also religion. So far, I've noticed that in schools, young people are very interested in sustainability and they get very engaged in certain projects, but I think the social aspect would need much more attention. So I'm looking into how to integrate that into lesson plans. At the beginning of the year, I created a few lesson plans for schools and I sent that out. I think it was to 3 schools, but I haven't received any feedback from them yet.
And that might have been through the religious education coordinators, and you'd been to see the principal, of course.
Yep.
And John was also available to sort of give them some practical science, outdoor examples and so on. So I know there's a number of people, Marinia and John, Paul, that are interested in education. Is there a question there from Marinia, Robbie? I suspect she may be on the phone. Yes, she's saying that, you know, it's good to have the odd meet up rather than have time-consuming meetings. And so that's the way we've tended to operate, is get together as we need to.
And the value of online meetings that can bring together people from different places is really good as an alternative network.
So Sarah, you've got these education plans and packages that other schools might be able to, you know, look at.
They may, but I still haven't received feedback from the other ones, so it'd be good to get that first to see if I need to tweak anything.
So those were our 2 primary Catholic schools in the parish, and also the St Francis Xavier College.
Yeah.
Okay, we might do that then, ask them how they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And Mari's mentioned some of the networking, but I don't think we're quite as advanced as Holy Trinity at Curtin in that regard, Vicky.
What were you thinking with that, Roger?
I was thinking of your work in climate change communications and advocacy over there in South Canberra.
Okay, well, just to share with the group a little bit of what I've been doing, I got particularly interested and engaged through the ARC network, the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change. I went to the conference last year and I found it very engaging and enlivening, and a very important part of the conference was not just to become more informed, it was actually to make commitments to what kind of action you might want to link up with others to be involved in. So they had a whole lot of options, and one of I just chose a very simple one, which was to do with putting signage out the front of places of worship. So I was really excited about that, in part because the religious response to climate change involves getting people from all the different faith traditions working together around the issue of climate change. So following on from the conference, I met up with a little group. We met up online, and we were planning to do sort of a major support and action to support the student strike, the last student strike that happened. That was on the 15th of May, I think. Mm-hmm. But with the COVID situation, that all then went online. So in the meantime, I just spoke to our local parish priest and asked him, would it be okay if I could put some signage up at the front of our parish? So I'll just give you a couple of I'll just show you what I actually we came up with. So I'll just get the photo.
Vicky's parish priest just happened to be the Vicar General for Education. So a bit of a win there, Vicky.
All right, so that's one that was the one that we put up out the front of Holy Trinity. And then the other one.
I noticed the tagline "Signs of Faith." That's your trademark, isn't it, Vicky?
No, sorry. That the Signs of Faith is the way in which people can go in. I think is it through Twitter, possibly, or Facebook, and all the various. It's associated with ARC, basically. So people who may have put up their photographs or had taken photographs at the front of their place of worship can take the photo and do a hashtag Signs of Faith. And then when people go online and put that hashtag in, they can get a whole lot of different signs. So the only other thing I was just going to quickly show you is the ARC website.
ARC, that sounds like a crow acronym, like a crow calling. ARC, ARC.
Okay.
It's the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change.
So this is their website, and they have a whole lot of information about what we're trying to achieve by putting signs and banners at the front of places of worship, and a whole sort of range of signs that other it's primarily Christian, but also there are also signs from Buddhist communities that they've put out at the front of their places of worship.
Well, we've got a Buddhist temple right next door to our church. We should see if they want one.
So, well, I mean, one of the exciting things about putting simple signs out the front of places of worship is that places of worship tend to be they're public places, and some of them have a huge amount of traffic going by. And so any sign of in solidarity with climate action is something that will be seen by the general public. And it's a great way for faith communities to stand in solidarity with the wider community of people who are impacted by climate change, and also stand in solidarity with young people who are very, very interested and active around climate action.
Vicky, this is John Jacon. Sorry to interrupt. I seem to have heard something about a plan to share those signs with other parishes who want them. Is that...
Yeah, look, I made signs that we put out the front of ours. On the ARC website, you can actually order a sign for your community, or if anyone was interested and wanted a hand with doing a sign for out the front of your place of worship, I'd be more than happy to speak to you individually and assist in any way.
So I'm just going to make another comment. Like, Vicky, would it be helpful if you put up? Have we got contact details for Vicky? Like, if people want to take you up on that, what's the practical thing? Has it got your phone number or email address?
Yeah, John. I'm sorry, Roger. Are you sharing emails or through this?
Yes, I do. I have email lists and phone contact information.
Okay, so look, if anyone wants to pursue it, just ask Roger, and he can pass on my details. But what's very fun and exciting about doing something like this is because if you take the photographs and you put them up online, it's a means by which we can create momentum and things, images and collections of images grow over time. And I think that they are a sign of encouragement and inspiration.
You mentioned the road traffic, and I know that on Friday mornings you meet with some of your interfaith community for a cup of coffee.
Well, Roger's talking about another thing that I've been involved with. In our family, we had a particularly grueling sort of time. I mean, like lots of people this summer, and a lot of members of my family were in diverse locations around Australia. And
would you mind sharing some of that with us, because it's part of your personal story but it's very important to us understanding the local context and how the Spirit's moving with us at this time.
Okay, well, just very briefly, in September, my husband and I travelled up to visit his sister in Uralla, and our brother-in-law, he's a very active member or has a lot of experience as a fire, what am I trying to say, fire control officer. And that was in September, and the weekend we arrived, he went on duty for fires that had started in Ebor area. And he was on duty for the rest of the summer, pretty much non-stop. So we came back home and we saw the conditions of the drought up there, and it was just absolutely terrible. Then I went across to WA. My daughter had a little baby, and we were going to meet up with my son to have Christmas together, and he was working on Kangaroo Island. And he came across just for a few days, and he could see what was happening on the island. And he with us for 4 days, and then he went back, and he just went through with the whole of that community a very, very harrowing experience. Then on the New Year's Eve, I had there were 18 members of my family down the south coast, and they all needed to be evacuated because of the fires down there. And then on the way home from WA, the plane we were travelling in got caught in the firestorm, and it was a very, very frightening experience. And Qantas cancelled the flights along that trajectory for a few days afterwards. But it's just, for me, it was joining the dots between all those experiences of just members of my own family. No one has been seriously injured or lost their job or their home, unlike what's happened for other people, especially on the south coast. But it's just made me feel like I must do whatever I can to take action. And there's just a couple of friends who are involved with the Stop Adani group, and they were feeling very impotent around in the January time, as the camera was just filled with smoke. And so we started to do a regular weekly demonstration opposite the lodge, opposite the Prime Minister's place of residence. And it was just putting up Friday morning each week signs asking for climate action. And it was quite empowering, and we certainly had amazing responses from people. That little group came to be known. People would toot their horns before we'd even put our signs up. And as we were packing up, and we were just there for 1 hour, but I think we worked out, I think it would be about 3,000 people that would have been going past those signs on a weekly basis.
So you just live down the road, I take it. Your parish is right next door to the lodge. Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, that wasn't strictly a parish initiative, but, it's part of, I think that gave me courage and desire to do what I could just in the parish situation as well.
Yeah, and with your own family and your grandchildren and that, you were on that journey.
Yeah.
And that photo that I put up was taken by my son-in-law's best man. And so that's part of my journey, is that photo was syndicated all over the world that he took at Lake Conjola.
Yeah.
So I guess we all have these personal stories. In my case, it's a lot of it's connected with the family farm and what's going on around us.
Vicky, did you get any feedback, positive or negative, from the signs outside the church?
I didn't personally, but I think that Father John Wood said that there was, no, that's not right. I did get a bit of only positive feedback. Maybe there was negative happening as well, but I didn't hear it. And I think Father John he also incorporated reference to the signs in his homily. Because when I did the ones on the 15th of May, that wasn't the first one I'd done first lot of signs I'd done. I'd done some earlier. I think maybe maybe I'm trying to think when it was. It was certainly before the COVID shutdown. And he actually incorporated a reference to the signs and to the call to care for our common home into his homily. So the community got a sense that he was supportive and explaining about that. It's great.
Roger, there was some comments from Paul Nicol and John Gearcon about making contact with senior management in the Catholic education system. Is now time to discuss those issues any further?
I think so, because even though John's about to talk about his footprint project, and it's an example of all the evolution of what's going on, you know, like Vicky, we're in contact with Vicky. Oh, her parish priest happens to be the Vicar General for Education, and he's interested in talking to John about a solar energy thing. So there's so many opportunities that have opened up since we started that it seems to be too coincidental to be other than, you know, some formal plan of action of God remaining anonymously sort of guiding us in various ways.
Roger, can I make a comment?
Yes, and you might like to also tell us about your footprint project, because you're involved in a lot of the practical initiatives around the parish.
Okay. I guess I'd start off by giving a bit of my view of the Catholic Church, and I don't know, I'm not the most political person in the sense of negotiating those pathways the best, but I guess I'd see the Church, like, it strikes me as no coincidence that Matthias Cormann was the bloke who criticised the people who went on the marches. Now, Matthias Cormann is a Catholic, but I felt like writing him a letter saying, mate, what have you done about refugees? What have you done about climate change? What have you done about the number of black people dying in prisons? And now you get up, you're sitting up there on your veranda smoking cigars with hockey and criticising people for this, you know. So I guess...
Are you telling us that some of our own congregation need echo conversion?
And I would say that most of the bishops in Australia have been appointed by their appointments have been strongly influenced by George Pell. So you've got the Zed Seselja, Tony Abbott, Matthias Cormann, part of Catholicism, which is quite powerful. And so in terms of, when I think of what's going to get the Church to act, I think of that as a major force, but I also think of, okay, what's the ways around that? So the sort of, I don't know if people are looking at the chat line, but the last question I asked on the chat line is, can school boards have any impact? Because I think there's probably more they're going to be lay Catholics, and there's probably a higher proportion of people who are interested in climate change on school boards than there are possibly in the CEO, which has been appointed by the Archbishop. So I guess my question is, you know, what's the strategic way of doing this? And people like Father Simon Falk is very much on side. I think John Woods is on side. They've also got to work in this reality of the bureaucracy that they're part of. So I guess there's that to me, and I don't know.
Okay, look, that's great, but I think tonight you're a major contributor in terms of our practical responses, and so I think if you could...
you want me to go into that?
I think it'd be useful just as an example of what you're doing in a practical sense.
Okay. So in fact, it follows on a bit from what I just said. I'm thinking, I think the earth is important. What can I do to make a difference? I'm part of a lot of different groups, some of them faith groups, some of them non-faith groups. Okay, so there's most of the 60 solar panels that started operating about 2.5 weeks ago on the Aranda Church, the parish centre. So what's the story of that? Well, when I arrived in the parish, I had I thought, how can I get this parish to do something? And words sometimes work, but I actually went along and said, look, I've got $5,000. I haven't put any money on the plate for 5 years. If you have a worthwhile ecological project, you can have the $5,000. If not, forget it. So I don't know whether that actually worked or how much, but anyway, after a while, we had a discussion within the parish. So I'll actually go down, so after we've seen that, I'll go down through what I've written here. So what are my starting points? There's no plan at B. I need to do what I can. What is my situation skills? So I can do individual action like, set the temperature in my place. But if you get in an organisation, you can potentially do a lot more. So the parish is one of the number of groups that I'm part of. I'm a Christian brother. I'm in local land care. I write letters to the local and federal government. Okay, so when I joined the parish group, I think I'd already said this, that I haven't put any money on the plate for 5 years, so the $5,000 is available for ecological projects such as solar panels. Now, the Laudato Si group was important in creating a climate for action. It told us that there were lots of people in the parish who actually thought that this was something important, and they were disappointed that nothing much was happening. And again, the parish priest was really important, and Roger in organising the group. So we also found out that Act Smart.
Well, we couldn't organise the parish financial council, but we eventually did.
Act Smart will give you up to 50% for solar, up to $5,000. So now we had $10,000 to start with. And after some backwards and forwards discussion, the finance committee decided on a 20 kilowatt, 60 panel, $25,000 system. So it reduces the parish carbon dioxide footprint by 55%. It'll pay for itself in under 4 years. So it's earning the parish about $4,000 a year. And to me, those panels are very educational. Every time someone walks into church now, just across the road, they're going to see all these panels. And I'd also like to produce a report each year saying, here's what's happened. Now I talked here about other potential actions. So we had this bright idea, or I had this bright idea. We got a parish centre, let's recycle soft plastics. It didn't work. People chucked everything in there. I was going to put up some rude notices saying, look, can't you bloody read? But then COVID came along and we didn't get to that. So we've still got a way to go on this. So I see this as a behavioural thing where there's going to be lots of little individual actions. The solar panels are there. They're going to be there for the next 20 years. And they're going to be saving 20 tonnes of carbon dioxide for the next 20 years and saving some money. So in one sense, that's an easy action once it's up. Things like the plastic bags are a bit different. So what are other potential actions? Well, other parishes, other organisations. Christian brother, I'm a bit limited in what I can spend my money on, how many overseas trips. So I've got all this money. So I'm actually saying to other organisations, you know what? If you can put some money into solar panels, I've got some money I'm trying to get rid of. In the parish,
John, can you stop sharing so we can see any questions now?
Okay.
Or do you need to read it? Yeah.
Righto. So look, there's other stuff there, probably more than about 10 minutes worth. So let's leave it now. I can give you. So I've got my.
What's on the next page?
And sorry, next page is back at my place is where I'm doing land care, but that's another action I'm doing. I'd like to do something like that around the parish. That's going to be a bit messier because those sorts of things. There's a lot.
See, that's right down from the school. You can show this to the school kids. So can you stop?
I'm a Christian brother, and I don't want to bring kids near my house. Sorry.
Can you stop sharing now? There we are.
Let me stop sharing. Right, stop sharing. Okay.
So, I mean, you're part of our parish context because you're so knowledgeable in a lot of these areas. And it connects to the educational side and the communications.
Roger, no, I know I'm interrupting, I'm sorry, but when there's a chance, there's a couple of things I'd like to offer before our meeting closes.
Yeah, if you could say something, Lucy. We've got another presentation that's quite important too.
All right. So shall I say it now?
Yes, please.
Okay, two things. Sarah, my name is Lucy. I'm sorry about the LB, but my name is Lucy Bastecki. I'd love to get your phone number from Roger, so that I could talk to you. I'm a former English teacher, secondary, and yes, and I did my training at ACU, and I have some lesson plans around all of this, and I'd love to share them with you and talk to you. So if you wouldn't mind letting Roger have your phone number and give it to me, please.
Sure, no problem.
Great, I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing is that I'd like to offer anybody the set of about 30 prayers of the faithful that I wrote, which was the action that came out of reading Laudato Si for me last year. And these are prayers of the faithful that cover a whole range of things. It basically covers integral ecology, people, social justice, and the land and the animals. So if anybody would like those, I'd be very happy to send them to Roger, and Roger could send them on, or whatever you like to do. But they can be incorporated into the prayers of the faithful or other Christian services or ecumenical services. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
That would be great. We've been doing some of that work through Murray as well, so we'd certainly like to see those.
Okay.
Look, there's some great people in our parish. I think that's come through, you know, like Brendan there's very interested in the ethical investment side, and we've mentioned Megan's keeping us well informed. So by working together in all these areas where we've got experience, it's coming together. But we've also got some wonderful people down on the South Coast, and there's some very innovative mechanisms. Ray and Fenella at Pambula have been captured by the COVID crisis, and we're so pleased that you're here with us, Ray and Fenella, and from North America. And you might like to give us some of the experience from over that side of the house.
Well, thanks, Roger. When Jackie Raymond spoke, I was primarily left with the question, how is the document brought to life? How does it become accessible? How does it move from an understanding of the head to an experience in the heart? And what I would call an ecological conversion, and then into action. I want to suggest a possible way to make this happen is through the arts. I say this not in any sense of performance or seeking perfection, though that may happen, but through using the arts to enable creative participation in community to deepen our understanding of the document. I want to illustrate this in 3 ways: through music, through textiles, and through dance. I speak because I've been involved, a participant in each one, and my life has been and is being transformed in relation to the planet through the vision of 3 very different women who are both activist and artist. Each has led the way through workshops in community to touch thousands of others in the process, thus deepening the possibility of ecological conversion. And what I'm going to show you are not blueprints, but serve as illustrations, perhaps to prompt your imagination. They may sow some seeds that could bring this document, Laudato Si, to life in your lives, in the community, in this country, and perhaps even further afield. So first, through music, I want to introduce you to the Earth Charter and to Carolyn McDade. So the unique thing about words is that they come directly from the Earth Chart, a document launched in 2000, which powered a global movement towards a more just, sustainable and peaceful world. They were put to music by Carolyn, a lifelong activist who described herself simply as a woman of faith, seeking with others to touch what matters. Carolyn is an activist, a singer and a songwriter. She began to realize in the 70s that unless we save the planet, that all other issues she's been working on would not matter. The Earth Charter inspired her work, enabling access to the words of this profound and inspiring document. So how did this happen? Carolyn was invited to be artist in resident at the Prairie Christian Training Center in Saskatchewan, Canada. Out of her music and lyrics grew a movement and international network where women from across Canada and the northern US gathered in singing circles to sing her work. Some were musicians, many couldn't read music, all were welcome. This was not about performance, but about participation. Over the years, 15 CDs were created. The song you've just heard comes from My Heart is Moved. The words or phrases sung are taken directly from the Earth Charter, much as it could happen for Laudato Si as well. Those words are then listened to in the car, whilst walking on a path, as background music, or sung together in small and larger groups, thus becoming internalized, transformative. Thus, the Earth Charter became no longer a document, but it became active in people's lives. I want now to introduce you to another creative expression, this time using textiles as an art form to express the interconnectedness of all creation, a theme that also repeats itself in Laudato Si. It is called All Beings Confluence and is an ever-expanding installation inspired and led by Canadian textile artist Martha Cole. It consists of a series of long recycled sheer panels, each representing a single living being, perhaps orca whale, water, eucalypt, or single blue-green algae who first provided our planet with oxygen. The completed panels are installed to fill a whole area, and a single panel is never seen by itself. It is always in community with others. So people are invited to walk amongst them, to touch them. They move gently with the currents, always merging into different patterns and relationship with each other. Through this action, we can actually feel ourselves as part of a vast, complex, and interconnected whole. So to create these panels, Martha led workshops across the country, often engaging those who would never, indeed, call themselves artists. Each individual created a single panel, giving expression to a different being who was calling to them. Martha calls this process creative activism, neither threatening nor judgmental. The installation now consists of over 300 panels. They've travelled across Canada and northern US, first at CD launches, later at Earth-related events and at book launches. More recently, Sister Gail Wasello, a disciple of Thomas Berry, brought them to Malaysia, Singapore, and I understand Australia. She has incorporated them into her work of sharing Berry's vision for an earth that can be loved by humanity as God loves it. And now, I would like to briefly introduce you to dance. Joanna Macy, a teacher and therapist, took a circle dance she had learnt in Germany and shared it with people in Russia who were living with the results of the Chernobyl disaster. For them, it became an expression of the will to live and a connection with the trees they so loved. The dance has since spread, giving activists and lovers of life the world over a tangible way to feel their bone-deep commitment and their solidarity with others across the miles. Having danced this at home in Winnipeg, it was really very exciting to come across it again this January in an Anglican church in Perth, where it's been danced in solidarity with the earth every Sunday for nearly 20 years. I invite you to take these examples, maybe allowing them to grow different seeds within yourselves and finding your own expressions, using the creative process in community participation to move with Laudato Si from an awareness in the head to experience in the heart and action in the world. That's it.
Oh, that was a nice note to end on. Thanks very much, Lucy, and also Ray for the backup work. So now, would anyone else like to add anything before we close?
Just one thing, just following on from that lovely presentation about the importance of the arts. In the Pope's February 2020 response to the Synod of Bishops in October last year, it doesn't have quantitative data. It has poetry. And poetry obviously is an art. And when I read his statement, I was surprised. Most of my career has been spent with quantitative data. So I started looking for the numbers. And I realized that my perspective was inadequate. It's so unusual to see poetry, poems from the 9 countries, most of the 9 countries around the Amazon, in both Spanish and Portuguese, translated, are in the document. So the Pope has a perspective consistent with the presentation we've just seen about the importance of the arts, because he's using one particular art form to emphasize the importance of both care for the environment and also a better relationship with Indigenous people.
Yeah, and I think we're pretty right on the questions now, Robbie. We don't have anything in the chat. We might ask Sister
Roger,
Bennett.
can I
Yes, sorry.
make a suggestion? There's a lot of ideas come up here, and I'm just wondering whether it's worth suggesting subgroups. So if people, for instance, are interested in Vicky's signs, rather than have to wait for another meeting or something, if you circulated, with everyone's permission, their email addresses and phone numbers, there may be a number of subgroups formed. So Vicky, for instance, with the signs, Fenello with the artwork. So if people are interested in doing that, I'm just
Yeah, sure. Well, one way of implementing that might be if people were to express interest to me in linking up with particular areas or particular people or things that have been mentioned tonight. And I will send you a recording of this session and also of the Oceania session on Friday with the universal plans for the.
Yeah, I think it might be better if they can contact people directly rather than having just much simplifies things. If people want to talk about silo, I'm happy to, rather than, giving you the extra job of saying, oh, here's John's address or something. So anyway, thought.
Yeah, well, we've got some people on our group that are not present tonight. So, Sister Benedetta, would you, if I was to share the screen, would you be able to offer a prayer for us tonight?
Yes, a basic one for it. Tonight we have spent some time discussing ways forward to heal our land and its peoples. This anniversary of Laudato Si offers us the hope that with the universal church, our awakening to the needs of the earth and its peoples will become a worldwide movement who care for our common land, common home. And we pray, all-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister, and thanks everybody for being present with us tonight.